What's up, my dudes? This is the track review of Washougal for Reflex, made by the Red Rider 197, and it's maybe, possibly, probably, most definitely the Washougal of all time for Reflex. So, as you can see, it's just cream of the crop top, drop top, no hot box. Like, I don't know how you could make a Washougal track any better than this. You might be able to make one somewhat as good as this, but you're never really going to make one better than this right here. I mean, this is just the definition of perfection when it comes to making rut designs in the corners and having roughness that actually creates a skill gap without having a janky feeling on the track. Like, the ruts are just built so well, and it just shows you how crucial having the on-track built right can totally change the feeling of a track. Like, it's just, I don't even know how to explain this track, but very similar to the Zafar, Zamunda, what was that track? A really, really good track that was made in this game. Like, there's a handful of really well-made tracks, and one thing that you can almost say every single one of those, like, best of all-time Reflex tracks has is really good ruts and really good roughness. And this track feels very similar to basically all of those tracks out there. So you're going to get a very cool, pretty nice skill gap off of this track right here. I mean, I could honestly see them doing like pro races with a skill gap like this on a MX versus ATV Reflex track. I mean, this is decent, dude. I know I always talk about how, oh man, MX Simulator's the game and all this stuff, and it is. It definitely is, but a lot of people forget that, man, Reflex is what I started on. Like, I have so much love for this game right here. I just haven't really made a lot of videos on it. It's a fucking bloomin' wonder that I didn't start my YouTube channel on Reflex, because I played Reflex for like 3 or 4 years straight, or maybe even like 5 years straight, nearly every single day. And then once I first started getting into MX Simulator, that's when I started my YouTube channel. And then everything else just sort of got pushed away. Like, I just kind of quit playing Reflex. I really got into MX Simulator. So a lot of people might think I'm like such a Reflex scrub and never really played the game, and I'm just on here to try to get YouTube views or some bullshit like that. But Reflex is actually my game, dude. Like, this is the one I started on. This is what my very first motocross game I ever really got into, was this one. So a lot of people kind of forget that, but I have played just a multitude of different Washougal replica tracks in many different games out there. Played the 14, 15, 16, 17 versions in MX Simulator, so I got a pretty decent idea of what the general layout of the track is. Like, I know what's up, I got it, what's going on here. Like, it's not like I'm just somebody that doesn't really know what Washougal would look like. Now, there are some parts of this track that might seem like where the lanes are a little bit shorter than what you would think that they would be in real life, possibly. And I'm not saying the track is bad by any stretch. I'm just, a little track reviewer turd that's got to go in here and explain all the little nitty-gritty things of the track. But, I mean, it's 10 overall potential. There's no doubt about that. Possibly even 11 overall. This is top-notch, top of the line. You're not gonna make a track better than this. Like, it's just hard to, you're just not gonna top where he's got his 5 or 6 ruts coming out of the corners. They're all just big enough to where they really grab you in the corner, but yet there's areas where you really got to get on the brakes. It's got that skill gap where it doesn't feel like you're just wide open everywhere on the track, even though there are some areas where you can be a little bit more wide open. The traction is just, it is straight orgasmic on this track, dude. It really is. Like, let me show you something. So you can get into a corner like this and just rail it around, but the traction feels like it's got a really cool, like, where it really allows your back tire to grip into the dirt and drive forward. It's really got that sort of traction to it where you can get a lot of speed in the corners. It's like it doesn't have a crazy amount of friction, but yet at the same time, it's got pretty good traction on it. So, like, you can get going pretty good realistic feeling speeds on the track, but still get that awesome like back tire spin drive at the same time. Like right here in this area, awesome scrub jump right there. You can scrub it just how you would think you would in real life Washougal. He's built that little scrub jump perfectly, but you'll know what I'm saying if you've rode on some of the other replica versions of Washougal and stuff. It just, and seen like helmet cams and shit like that, you would notice that some of the sections, like, they're a little shorter, like in an overall sense, and you know, that's just really small, nitpicky stuff. And a lot of times when you're making replica tracks, like, you got to make certain areas, wow, I totally just cheated right there, but you got to make certain areas a little shorter than you might want to make everything fit in the right. You know, every game has sort of a voxel limit to the track you can make, you know, size-wise. You can't just make an unlimited size track. So, you know, the reason why some of these sections might be a little bit shorter is maybe he ran out of room. I'm not really sure, but you can never really tell. Sometimes when you're making replica tracks, you just do whatever you can to make it work. So, and I've definitely experienced that with making some simulator tracks. Oh, so there we go. But yeah, it feels pretty good as far as a overall replication design. Like on the off track, it feels like Washougal. You know, he's made his mountains and where he's put his trees and all that stuff. It feels really good. It doesn't feel like you're just on some random weird track that has a Washougal layout on it. It actually feels like you're on Washougal. You know, it captures the feeling of Washougal, which is always probably one of the most important things when you're making a replica track, because it don't really matter how you build it. If it don't feel like you're on that track, then what the hell's the point anyways? You know, you really got to make it to where it feels like you're riding on that track. So, like right here in these double, ooh, let me just grind that little banner there, Dave. Baby, grind on me. So, let's see if we can hit some inside ruts. SpongeBob is the death of me. Okay. So what's interesting is like some of these inside ruts are a little bit tricky to see. Like you really do have to pay attention to what you're doing. You can't just blindly hold it wide open like you're probably used to on a lot of reflex tracks. I mean, I'm really impressed with this. This is the skill gap I'm talking about that you can have in arcade motocross games. Everyone always gets on my ass about me just, you know, trying to turn an arcade game into a simulator, which is never the case. I just want them to have a cool skill gap where like you can actually feel like you can separate yourself on the track, and there's enough roughness and there's enough, the ruts are big enough to where they really feel like you could just run an unlimited amount of laps on it and get better every single time you do it. That's what this track is right here. It's got a realistic skill gap. Even though it's an arcade game, people, it's still got a realistic skill gap, you know? Somebody could have went in here and made a replica of this and made it 10 times easier, and then it wouldn't have been fun at all. You get what I'm saying? I love how he did that little sand section. It's got a different decal on it there. Fun. That's that nice floater Washougal jump right there. I always love scrubbing this one jump up here on simulator. You can get it pretty good scrub there as well. But just the jump sizes and the jump distances, they don't feel like super small. That's a bit of a problem some people have with making reflex tracks, is they'll make the jumps a little smaller. It's like they're almost trying to make it too realistic to where it like eliminates the fun factor completely because the jumps are way too small. But this one feels like it pops you up in the air enough. Feels a little bit more like that true realistic, not realistic, but reflex. I mean, it's all in how you look at it, but reflex fun factor to it. It's like, you know, when you have a arcade game like this, you got to be careful with these replica tracks, because if you make them too easy, then it's not going to be that fun, regardless of how accurate it is. And that's where simulator becomes such a cool thing, because you can make an easy track on simulator and it's still hard to some degree there, but like when you get these kind of tracks in reflex, oh dude, I just love it. I mean, I love this style of track design for reflex, where it's got every single part of the track feels like you're on a motocross track. You don't ever feel like you're riding on something that's perfectly smooth. You're realism factor and your immersion is always kept at an all-time high on this track, because you're constantly hitting some little divot, some little change of the terrain. You know, you're never hitting something perfectly smooth, and that's such an important thing, because real life motocross tracks are not glass smooth like that unless they're like super dry. And in that occasion, yeah, you could have certain areas on some tracks like that, but if it's trying to be like blue groove dry or some shit. But most time people just generally make their tracks too smooth. Like they'll have them smooth and perfectly flat in areas, and then they'll have their braking bumps somewhere, and then it'll get perfectly flat again. But this track, even in the areas that are meant to be more quote unquote smooth on the track, they still have a little bit of roughness and changing of terrain. And even on some of the sections that aren't necessarily your braking bumps, it still has that sort of changing terrain kind of feeling to it, which is so cool that he captured that. And the off track, I mean, you can see the trees. They look basic. They look pretty standard reflex like, but luckily enough, that's what Washougal looks like, so it doesn't take anything away from the track, even though it's like just about as basic as you can make a off-track tree-wise and stuff like that. It feels just like Washougal. I mean, that's what Washougal is, you know, pretty standard tree styles and stuff. Woo! Let me just ride a little wheelie in that right there. Let's try to hit some inside lines. But yeah, I'm going to be making a lot more reflex videos. I apologize for not doing that. I looked at my channel and realized I'd only made like 30 total reflex videos, which is such a disgrace, because I'm telling you, reflex was my game, dude. Like, I need to get in here and really start playing some of these arcade motocross games and making videos on them. I love these games. No matter if I disagree with some of them or don't really like the direction of some of them, I'm a motocross gaming fan before anything else. And matter of fact, that's actually the reason I'm upset with some of those games. It's not just because I'm a simulator fanboy and hate everything that's not simulator. So I'm going to go in here and start really making the vids on this stuff, man, along with my simulator videos. I love the track designs. It's amazing to see people still working on reflex, and obviously people still enjoy watching it on YouTube. You probably got 3 or 4 times more people that really watch like reflex and arcade style motocross games than you do the simulator genre and market. Is such a small, tight-knit, like dedicated group of people. I feel like MX Simulator has not went mainstream by any sort of stretch of it. Like, it just really hasn't, like some of these arcade motocross games have. But it's just so cool how you can get on a track like this, even though it's an arcade game, and still feel like, wow, dude, I could master this track. Like, I could get really, really good on this track if I wanted to, you know, if I really spent the time on it. It doesn't just feel like it's this basic feeling of holding the gas down everywhere and there's no skill to it, and it actually feels like there's something there with it. As I go flipping, flying TP720 through the air, really bizarre little Red Bull arch right there. It's like super stretched. Kind of eliminates you from jumping that little side jump there. See if we can hit these little rollers. Definitely not. Stuck on the banners. Okay. Yeah, that worked out perfectly. But like I said, 10 overall for this track. You know, like right there, right here in this section, this is a good little example of it feels a little shorter lengthwise right here than what it actually would be. You know, when you come off that finish line and you come over here, it's like it's just a little bit shorter. And I've never rode on Washougal in real life, so what the fuck am I talking about, you know? But I'm just basing it off of all the replica tracks that they made and the helmet cams and stuff like that. That's really what I'm basing it off of. But Reflex is a little bit different with just how the game is and everything, so... but I would say the difficulty, you're probably looking at hard on this track. And that's one thing about Reflex, you lean back a lot more in this game. That's what's pretty different. Like MX Simulator, if you really get your setup made for like jumping big supercross jumps and stuff, you can't really lean back like that, or you're just going to flip right over. But with Reflex, like a lot of how you get traction out of the corners and stuff is leaning all the way back. That's one thing that I used to have really down packed when I played this game a lot, but you just kind of forget and don't really think about doing those things once you've went to simulator, because you know, your skill base is all kind of put into MX Simulator at that point. But now I'm starting to remember some of the things, some of the little trick things I used to do back when I played Reflex a lot. It's kind of cool. You can see me feeling the vibe in these ruts a little bit now. Just had to give me a second to find my speed. Oh, yeah, there we go. Oh, such a cool corner. It's like got that perfect balance of you got to get on your brakes a little bit, but you can still get on the gas fast as well. It's not like super tight, crazy, janky roughness where it just is not fun. You know, it definitely still captures that fun factor and speed factor in the corners. So much fun, man. But yeah, shout out to you for making this track, dude. Like I'm saying, this will be the Washougal of, ooh, gonna take my head off right there, bro. This will be the Washougal of Reflex. Like I'm saying, some people might be able to make like a 2018-19 version that's just as good as this, maybe, but they're never really gonna make anything better. I mean, this is top of the line, bro. So either way, I appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.